Welcome to KWS Talks, the show where we take a deep dive into our school and explore the interesting people who are part of it.
We're here to bring you fresh perspectives, insightful conversations, and a touch of humour to brighten your day.
I'm Becky, and I'm one of the co-hosts here at KWS Talks. I'm excited to bring this week's episode to you.
And I'm Tristan, another sixth former, and I'm also a head student and other co-host of KWS Talks. Together, we're here to guide these important discussions.
Today we'll be talking about revision techniques, study skills, and how to manage stress in the run-up to exams.
We're here with Ben, another sixth former, to talk to us about how he achieved straight grade 9s in his GCSEs.
Hi Ben, thank you for coming on to the show today. So to start off with, we'll be talking a little bit about revision techniques, and seeing as you achieved grade 9s, we thought it would be a brilliant opportunity for us to ask you to talk to the student body and anyone listening about how you achieved these grade 9s.
So first of all, we would like to ask you, what revision techniques did you find most effective when preparing for your GCSEs?
So I mainly use flashcards to prepare for my GCSEs. So I made them using a variety of resources, including the specification, textbooks, and then lesson notes. And then I went through them, made sure I knew them properly, put them into basically 3 different piles. Ones I knew, ones I half knew, and then ones I didn't know. And I just continually went over them. And then once I knew them all, I moved on to past papers, firstly for like specific topics. And then I moved on to full past papers, some kind of half using the mark scheme a little bit, and then others in full exam conditions.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of students overlook is the specification and how useful it can be.
Yeah.
Because although it doesn't contain as much information as something like a textbook might, it still includes a lot of key points and things that you need to know for your exams, and it can be vital for, as you say, creating flashcards.
Can I just ask, did you make those flashcards like physically or digitally?
So for my GCSEs, I made them like on paper, which did work. But now in my A levels, I'm doing them digitally. I think they're probably a bit quicker to just make digitally, and they're all in one place. So I'd probably advise doing.
Yeah, it's easier to keep track of. You don't have random pieces of paper in your home that you could lose or you can misplace or you can get mixed up. And would you what website would you say you use?
I use Quizlet at the moment,
Wow.
which is quite good.
Yeah, I think that is quite a popular one and also one that a lot of students use.
Yeah, that was definitely a useful thing for me in history because I know you can find pre-made flashcards on
Yeah,
there
you can.
sometimes. Obviously you had to make sure that they were correct,
Yeah.
but yeah. I've been using Anki recently and it's actually really good because it spaces out the flashcards depending on how well you know them. So that's another resource that people might want to check out.
How would you say you revise the subjects that you found most difficult?
I think I made sure to kind of start with those things first, just to basically give me as much time as possible to go over them. And I did more or less the same thing, but just spent more time on them. And often, like the flashcards that I didn't get right, I used to like write out on a whiteboard or a piece of paper, just to help get it in my head. And then I just continually went over them.
What subjects would you say you did find most difficult in the exams?
I'd say further maths and Mandarin probably. But yeah.
Understandable. Further maths was definitely quite a hard exam.
Yeah.
Obviously, compared to maths, it's got a lot more stuff. Along with even, I think, A levels now, it still has some of the things we're learning now. So it definitely was hard, and I guess, for example, for maths, it's really hard to revise with flashcards because I think the only way you can revise maths is just practice questions and practice papers. So I think, like in that case, further maths is definitely one of the hardest ones. And Mandarin, I never took it, so I don't really know how hard it is, but I presume it was quite hard.
There's no alphabet, so you just have to like learn the characters, which takes time.
It's like pure memorization. I mean, as we're talking about memorization, how would you say you retain that information that you revise? Because yes, you can, of course, like look at a flashcard, but it doesn't mean like a month down the line you'll actually remember it.
Yeah. I think, first of all, when I was learning them, I used to either say them multiple times in my head or out loud, and then used to write them down a few times, especially if I wasn't as confident on them. And then I like continuously went over them, like usually once a week or something, just to help get it in my long-term memory.
Yeah, so that sort of different types of learning, saying
Yeah.
it verbally and things. And I found trying to teach people
Yes,
actually really helped.
that helps.
I did that in the decision test we did, the decision maths test. And that was really useful because it meant that then by trying to teach someone, you figure out the places that you're maybe missing information.
Yeah, and also with teaching other people, you need to have such a high level of understanding of it to try and explain it that it just sort of solidifies your understanding of any topic you have a test on and can help you in the exams.
So perhaps if you've got siblings or parents that are willing to sit down for a little bit and listen to you.
Or even
Good
friends or
thing.
teachers or just anyone who's willing to lend an ear. If you try and explain these exams or these topics to them and, try to get a high level of understanding, I think it would definitely help.
I think sometimes as well, even if you're not doing it to anyone, even if you almost pretend that you're explaining it to somebody, that can help as well. You don't necessarily have to have somebody actually there.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. So just kind of moving on to study habits, because I know it's really important to kind of have those things in place so that you continue revising even when you might not be feeling so motivated. Did you use a revision timetable? And if so, how did you structure it?
Yeah, so I used a revision timetable which I made on just a Google Doc. And I basically divided, so I usually revise Monday to Friday and then on Sunday, so I didn't usually do much on Saturday. And I usually just pick 2 subjects a day, and then for each session I just put which topic I'd focus on. And that's how I structured it.
How many hours would you say you did of revision per subject? Maybe leading up to the exams and then quite close to the weeks before the actual exams.
Yeah, I think I usually did stay probably between 2 and 2.5 hours, and more or less that was evenly across each subject.
Because I think at GCSEs you have quite a lot of exams and a lot of subjects, so having each exam, a certain amount of time and a certain amount of time for each subject ensures that you have an adequate understanding of each subject across the board. Because some people I know will focus on the easier one or focus on the one that requires less effort. And while you may excel in that one when it comes to the exams, then you're neglecting the other exams. And then it turns out your grades will reflect that, obviously.
You should focus on the ones you find more challenging first, just to give you as much time to go over them as possible.
It's definitely important to also spread that workload out across as long a time period as possible so that when it comes to it, you're not cramming in. I mean, talking more about breaks, did you have any sort of structure for that? How did you decide when to take breaks and what did you do during them?
Yeah, so I usually did an hour at a time and then went off for half an hour or something. And I just made sure to leave my room and go outside or go downstairs so you're not just sitting at the same desk for long periods of time.
Yeah, it's definitely important to move around to get the blood flowing, to get, either a different change of scenery, whether, like you said, it's outside or if you go downstairs, or if you, I don't know, go read, go make some tea, make some food, just anything to keep your mind off the subjects that you're learning. Otherwise, you'll easily get burnt out.
Yeah, definitely. And did you study alone or with friends at all? So any study groups? And if you did have any experience with this, can you say any pros and cons?
Yeah, so I think I did a bit of both. I think mainly actually learning it, I did it on myself just so I could make sure I was focused and going over things that I needed to in specifically. But I think before the exam I went over some of the topics with a few people, which definitely helped. I think trying to teach other people and go over it kind of helps you as well. But yeah, I think a mix is definitely probably the best option.
Yeah, it's quite nice if you do have a study group because then it means the workload is reduced because you can split it up. So you will kind of share resources, which can make it more efficient.
Yeah. The only downside of a study group is that you could get easily distracted and obviously, lose concentration. But like you said, it is good for splitting up workloads and having certain people do certain parts of the subject, so you don't overwork yourself, but still get the maximum amount of revision resources that you can.
Yeah, so kind of talking about distractions when we're talking about these study groups, how did you handle these, such as with social media and phone notifications?
Yeah, I think just trying to eliminate them from the environment that you're working in. So with your phone, just turn it on do not disturb, or put it on like in the other room or whatever, and just making sure that it's like completely away from you so you're not tempted to. I think it's probably the best way of going about
Yeah,
it.
like giving it to your parents or
Yeah.
siblings, or locking it in a drawer, or putting it somewhere where you can not be tempted by it and
Yeah.
still focus on your exams.
Yeah. Now, of course, we've been talking a lot about revision and studying, but when you're preparing for these exams, you need to maintain a good work-life balance. So how would you say you maintained this and looked after your well-being while you're preparing?
Yeah, well, I play football and golf, so I made sure to like keep up with that throughout the whole exam, even when I was actually in the exams. Sometimes you will have to like maybe miss one session here and there, but I think trying to just keep up with them generally is a good idea. During the exam as well, having something that's quite flexible in terms of when you can like do it, and you're not like set to a specific time, helps, for then you can do it when you feel like it.
Yeah, I definitely think that having some sort of variety in leading up to the exam season and inside the exam season definitely helps. So you don't obviously burn yourself out, and have that sort of variety, like football or like golf, seeing other people, talking to them, not focusing on the exam solely, definitely does help your well-being. Obviously, as much as you do want to revise and you do want to do well in these exams, you also have to take in consideration your well-being, and because at some point it becomes counterproductive revising so much that you burn yourself out.
Yeah.
So, how important was sleep to you during this revision period? Because we've talked about sort of sports and things like that. Of course, you need to sleep so you can retain all this information.
And obviously have enough energy to revise and go about your day.
Did
So
you have like a set schedule? How did you sort of
Yeah,
plan
I
it?
think specifically like during the actual exam period, usually try not to do any work past about 7 o'clock, and just either like have a more relaxed evening and just watch TV or whatever, and then go to bed fairly early, just to get as much sleep as possible to help you focus and work during the day.
So, I suppose all of these things kind of helped you stay consistent without burning out, but have you got any more tips for the listeners?
I think starting early helps, because even though it's over a longer period, you then have to be less intense with it. And you can spread it out over a longer period.
yeah, I think a key message is that it's never too late to start. Because some people might feel like, oh, the days are counting down, and I don't have enough time, so why bother? But starting at any point, even now, even in a week's time, if you just start and get work done, and eventually you'll find that over time, you started as early as you could, you then now have less work that you have to go through.
Now, kind of summing up with some final questions, how did you prepare on the actual day of the exam? And have you got any last minute tips for people?
I think the morning of the exam was kind of more about getting confidence to go in. So just looking over something quickly, nothing like new or anything like that's going to stress you out and think that you don't know enough, but just kind of going over the stuff that's going to make you confident on the morning of the exam would be my tip.
Would you say cramming was helpful at all? Did you look at a textbook beforehand? Did you have notes that you skimmed through like the few minutes before the exam, before they told you to pack up stuff and walk to the hall?
Yeah, I think I tried not to go for the first time just before the exam, but yeah, just skimming over it, because you probably will forget a few things just because of the stress of the exam. But yeah, just trying to build as much confidence as possible.
As the students currently at this point in the year are still studying for their exams, what advice would you give to them?
I'd say start now, probably, because I think the longer you have to actually revise, the better you'll do, but also the kind of more you can spread it out. I don't think you'll really regret working hard.
So, this might be a bit of a hard question, but if you could give just one piece of advice to people studying for their exams, what would it be?
Putting you on the spot here, isn't it? Yeah.
I think, like I just said, just work hard, because you won't regret working hard.
Yeah, I know we put Ben quite on the spot here, but Becky, what would you say is one piece of advice you could give to students preparing for their exams now?
I would say when you're doing your mocks and things like that, I would say make resources then so that you're not cramming them in last minute. As Ben said, work hard, but don't push yourself past the breaking point.
Right, of course.
What about you, Tristan? What would you say?
Well, I think I would say is that don't compare yourself to others is quite a key point, because hearing about other people doing well in their exams or doing a lot more work than you are shouldn't demotivate you or make you feel bad about yourself. If you're putting in the most amount of work that you can and doing the best you can, that's all anyone can ask of you. So I think it's important to keep in mind that everyone is different, and as long as you do your best, you'll be fine.
Well, thank you. That was really wonderful. Thank you so much, Ben.
And hopefully the current students who are listening to this podcast can, take a few key pointers and realize that, what they should do and how they can maximize the grades.
That's all for today's episode of KWS Talks. We hope you've enjoyed this conversation and found it as insightful as we did.
Thank you to our guest, Ben Whittle, for giving up your time today.
If you liked today's episode, be sure to share it with someone who'd find it valuable.
And don't forget to join us next time for another engaging discussion with a brand new guest.
Until then, take care.